Hello. So in this tutorial, we're going to make a patch that automatically segments video when it detects a scene change. So basically, you will be able to throw in a video and cut that video up into separate clips whenever there's a big change in the image, typically when there's a cut. So first, we need a video file. I'm going to use this video file here from Christian Markley called Playtime. We're going to create a jitter p window so we can see the video in the patch just for whilst we're patching to see what's going on. So if I create a little loop up here, we see the video playing. Now, in order to detect if there's a lot of change in the image, what we do is that we compare each frame of this video with the previous frame. And if there's a lot of difference between those two frames, we consider that there's a cut. Now, the way to do this in jitter, one way to do it, is to use the jitop object, which basically just runs calculations on matrices, and the operator we're going to run here is the apps_diff operator. So apps_diff calculates the difference, so it takes frame 2 and subtracts frame 1. So the difference is frame 2 minus frame 1, and from that value it takes the absolute value. So if there's 1 pixel in frame 2, and the value is, I don't know, 12, and there's 1 pixel in frame 1 and the value is 6. Here, let me write it down. Frame A pixel value is 12 and frame B pixel value is 6. So now it's going to take frame B minus frame A, so 6 minus 12, and that equals minus 6. But now we take the absolute difference, so the absolute value of minus 6, which is equal to 6. Okay, so in max, that means we take the frame and we subtract the previous frame from the new frame that's coming in. Okay, so if we look at what comes out here now, it should be the difference between frame B and frame A. And here we are. So what we see here is only the difference between two frames. That means if there's very little movement, most of the image here will be black. And if there's a lot of movement, most of the image will be white. Observe right now. So you only see the moving parts, and if there's no movement, you won't see it down here, like now. Here you only see the person and the door. And when there's a cut, you see a short, bright flash, because from one frame to the next, all the pixel values are different. That's why there's a short flash. It's very short. Sometimes you don't even see it. Now, let's do some jitter gymnastics here. First of all, we're going to convert this image into black and white. So that we can do with jit RGB to luma. Okay. So now we have the same thing, but in black and white. That's just because it's easier to calculate. Because what we want to do now is to take all the pixel values of this image, and if it's very dark, the pixel values will be very low, and if it's very bright, the pixel values will be very high. So to get the average pixel value of this image, we can use jit3m. It reports the minimum, mean, and maximum values of the image coming in. So we're going to take the mean values of this image here, and this basically converts this image into one number. So if this is very dark, this number is very small. And if this is very bright, if there's a lot of movement, this number is going to be very high. Now it's hard to read when it moves so quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a multi-slider object to see this value over time. So we got to give it the right values. So inspector. Slider style, we set it to point scroll. And the range, we're going to set it to 0 and, I don't know, 50. This you have to try out. So anyway, we already see the values coming in down here. And we see when there's a cut, we get a very high value here. Now there's little movement. So these values are rather low. Now there was a lot of movement right here. So we had high values. So there was a lot of movement, very little movement. And when there's a cut, we get individual pixels, just one pixel that's really high. Well, here we got it. It's high, it's just going up along the edge. Here's another one, that was another cut. Here's another one. So what we want to do now is to detect these really high values. That's fairly easy. We can just use the greater than object, this one. And we say if it's greater than, I don't know, 20, for example. We consider that a cut. So this, when it's above 20, this goes to 1, so we get a little cross here. And if it's below 20, it stays 0, like right now. So let's listen to this. Let's just create a click whenever this value goes over 1. It's kind of easier to judge because now we have too many things to look at. So here, there's constantly values coming out of here. So we're going to use the change object. The change object only outputs a value when the value actually changes. Here every time there's a frame, there's a value coming out. Change, the value only comes out when it goes from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 0, like now. Okay, so we use the change object and we select 1. So when it's above 20, this will bang when it's above 20, so when there's 1. And we trigger a click with this, send it to the DAC, and let's see if it works. Oops. Yep. There we go. Not float, int cell1. There we go. There was a cut, cut, cut. No cut because it was a crossfade. So now this is all continuous. Cut and cut again. Okay. So we're halfway there.